Should we start?
Yes.
Wait. What was our intro again? Whoosh. Oh, you had to do the thing where you had your mouth open full.
No, it's because you watched...
Oh, that's right. Okay. Let's do that again. Ready?
Because you watched... Starcrash. Alright, folks. Hey, it's me, Mike Vanderpool here. The Three Musketeers, Mike Vanderpool, Dr. Alan Barris, and Michael Klink. And we are here today because of Starcrash. Starcrash is a film we reviewed in the last episode, and that is the kind of marker by which we will analyze all of these future films. The recommendation then, because we watched these on Amazon Prime, we got a list of, because you watched Starcrash, you should watch this. The next two films, Galaxina and The Cold Equation. Unfortunately, for those of you out there in podcast land, Galaxina is no longer available on Amazon Prime. It looks like August 31st, the license ended. I went to watch it again this weekend to prep for today's show, and it's no longer there. So I'm going to have to rely on you two heavily for the Galaxina input. I did watch The Cold Equation, did not fall asleep, so I'm impressed there. But we're going to go through and give the connection to Starcrash, why we think these things are actually in the list, talk about what was it trying to do, talk about where this movie fell in regards to how well it accomplished what it was trying to do, and then end with what's going to be probably more than a few WTF moments, because, dear God, there's lots of them. So, that said, connection to Starcrash for Galaxina.
All right, this one is easy because Galaxina is a parody of Star Wars. It's a parody of Star Trek. It's a parody of 2001, and it's got even thrown in a parody of Alien along the way. So it's hitting all the main sci-fi moments, and it's also a vague sexploitation movie as well because of Galaxina. So I think the connection's pretty obvious. I'd be really surprised in a recommendation list that this didn't show up along with Starcrash.
Mr. Klink, what about you? What are your thoughts here on how it's connected to Starcrash?
It's in space.
1980 is when it came out.
Yeah.
So
there's a text crawl, which again, Starcrash was kind of going towards Star Wars a little bit.
Yeah.
And there was a text crawl followed by a long ship shot, which again, very much Star Warsy,
vaguely phallic ship kind of setting up.
Aren't all ships vaguely phallic though?
This one seems to be a little less vaguely phallic than others and more obviously phallic. But
what about 2001?
Okay, I have to give you that.
I remember that one being very,
and that was inspired by a bone. So I mean, there it is. I think the crawl is such a fundamental example of how sci-fi films that are bad missed Star Trek or Star Wars and what Star Wars was actually doing. Right? Star Wars crawl was exposition delivered in a new way that got you into the story. Wow. Galaxina's crawl is blah, giving you a bunch of information you don't even care about that doesn't really relate to the story. It's almost pre-writing. But that idea that just having a crawl is going to make this cool failed miserably.
And the crawl wasn't even new per se. I mean, Flash Gordon serials.
Yeah.
That would crawl back and so that you can either catch up on the previous episode or know what's going on there, and that's where George Lucas got it from.
Right.
That. So there's still that aspect of it, which I guess would class it up. Let's class up this sci-fi movie and have everything look cooler by having the crawl that doesn't really matter. You can cut that out.
Yeah, without that crawl, it's equally valuable film. So that's Galaxina, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got The Cold Equation, which was when was that? That's a newer
1996.
film. 1996. Yes. 96?
Yeah.
In the height of sci-fi's doing like
the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah, Sci-Fi Channel releases. It's a Sci-Fi Channel production.
Before the bad Sharknado.
Yes. Yes.
So what's its connection then to Starcrash other than being in space?
I think that is it.
Yeah.
Actually.
Okay.
It's in space.
And it's also kind of low production value, I guess. Maybe it kind of picks up on that. Maybe it picks up the sci-fi channel connection.
So it was made for TV.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing, right?
And there are big blank spots where apparently commercial break
breaks.
is happening.
Yep.
And at first I thought my TV was broken.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? And then, okay, it kept going.
So we've got Starcrash, which last episode we determined it was a serious film or a serious endeavor as a film.
Yeah, I would say.
And here, these two films, recommendations from Starcrash, are complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Where Galaxina, farce,
Yes.
or I mean, and Cold Equation, melodramatic to say the least.
Yes.
Okay.
So when I first watched Galaxina, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know it was supposed to be comedy. I thought it was going to be another thing.
What was your
Starcrash.
first clue?
No, so I didn't. So because
I'll share my first clue.
Yeah, no, you told me about it. So I'm going into this thing thinking it's supposed to be serious, and I'm like, what am I watching? Because it's just wow. And then once, I think the first actual clue of it actually being a comedy that's trying to be a comedy was when they did the Blue Crystal thing.
Yeah.
When they talk
Oh, spoilers.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah, this is always spoilers.
Yeah.
But the Blue Crystal thing was a nice gag throughout the whole movie because whenever they say the Blue Crystal, they'd have this music.
Yeah.
And then from the music, the characters would look around and go, where's that music coming from? And that was kind of harken back to, and I have it.
I mean, that's a little bit like Spaceballs, right? Watching themselves in the...
Yeah.
That or the... whenever Frau Blucher says her name, then the horses always winning, no matter if they're in... this is in Young Frankenstein.
Yep.
If they're in the castle or outside, every time they say her name, you just hear the horses in the background randomly, and they know that it's because they said her name. So it was a nice gag for that, but everything else was just kind of... It fell a little short for me.
For me, this was the awareness of the first WTF moment for me. Captain Cornelius Butt. At that moment, I was like, this is going to be a hard ride, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So how well then, with... because we're kind of getting into it a little bit, how well did they hit their mark, right, of the Cold Equation being the melodrama and then Galaxina trying to be a farce? I mean, we've kind of gotten... It seems like Galaxina had the elements of being a successful farce, but I'm going to argue that it was, dear God, too boring and ridiculous to actually, like...
The overall story isn't very good.
Can you summarize it? Because I don't even know.
I don't even know.
Okay.
From what I remember, they're space police, but only by title, like not by uniform.
Right.
Because nobody has a uniform. There's three people. There's a private, a sergeant, and the captain on this ship with an android who is Galaxina.
Dorothy Stratton.
Yes, Dorothy.
Who they made unnecessarily hot.
Yes. But, I mean, yeah. Anyway, and there's a side story with her, and you can't touch her. If you touch her, you get shocked, and the whole thing. Anyways, there's a robot that comes into their galaxy that wants to take over the universe by getting the blue crystal. Can you imagine? And so their commanding officer guy, after they fight him, commanding officer guy, like from the superior officer to the captain, sends them to a planet that's 27 years away. So they have to be in hypersleep to get there. And then once they get there, they have to get the blue crystal. And that's pretty much it.
And where does the blue crystal come from?
Yes.
Is it like the
I don't know.
Is it like the watch in Somewhere in Time? It's like this big, huge discussion piece, or is it not even close to?
No, that's
actually
interesting.
Yeah,
the blue crystal is not.
It seems to be a textbook MacGuffin. It's just there,
right?
So we got some lame thing to hang all this shtick on, I think.
Or like Peter Parker likes to call it a goober from the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
But so it seems like this movie could have been either A, one single episode, again, like most of these, or B, the different plots could have been a full-length movie in themselves.
Yeah, the pacing, from what I remember, is really, really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad.
And so I was watching a review about it last night just to kind of re-up my knowledge. Cause,
Cheating?
Yeah, it was cheating. No, but they were saying that actually the director and writer guy they couldn't film certain scenes because of weather, so they had to cut them from the script, and that's why it's kind of weird.
Oh, okay, that would make sense.
And so he said that if he had those scenes, then it would have been edited more quicker. I don't know. Faster paced, I guess.
The poster's amazing.
Again, yeah.
I mean, I'd go watch that as a young teenage boy.
Oh, yeah.
But is that shot ever in the film?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
My question is, why do you guys think this movie is called Galaxina? She's a side character.
But it's easier to call it Galaxina than, I don't know, Random Space Farce 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have named it after the ship Infinity or something.
Or Blue Crystal.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know.
Star Crystal.
Then they could have done a bad parody. Or no, Dark Crystal wasn't out yet. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because Dorothy Stratton, I'm going to argue, was the most recognized name of the cast. And her being on the cover of the poster and her being the marketing piece, I think probably. Now, could they have given her another name? Sure. But Galaxina sounds cool, I guess.
Yeah, it's very spacey.
I mean, how close is this to Barbarella?
Right. And that might be the other thing, too, that we've got that Barbarella connection again. And this is a sex farce. I mean, a lot of the jokes are sex-based. I mean, it's broad, it's dumb, it's not supposed to be the kind of thing you think about a lot. This is supposed to be like a basic make you chuckle and then go home movie.
But,
so
I mean, and this
maybe
is, I guess,
get turned on a teensy bit with.
does this film do this now? And then I guess conversely, did it do it then? But if think back to like when you were younger, is this a movie? Us, having been teenage boys at the time, would have actually snuck and stayed up late in the 80s or close to that, right? Like snuck out and hidden and watched on Cinemax late night.
I might have attempted to watch it, that I would have regretted the decision.
Okay, so yes, there was nothing there.
I was a teenager in the late 90s.
You're a young one.
Yeah. This
because that's who I would argue who it's made for.
Right.
I mean, it's not made for
a mature sense of humor.
Yes.
For starters.
Yeah.
So with all of these movies that we've been watching, you definitely have to be in the mood to watch a bad film. Because if you're in the mood to watch, I don't know, Titanic or Amistad or Saving Private Ryan or something, and then you watch this, you're going to be disappointed.
Oh, yes.
So I would think being in that sort of mood, too, does help. Okay, let me watch a bad film and see how bad it is.
Right, right. Because we're going into it with the idea of being able to analyze it and talk about it, which provides already some level of value into it versus just watching it as something in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right. So, cold equation then.
So a weird animal, I'll just say that.
but I think we do have to understand why it was made, right? Sci-Fi Channel looking to fill space, pardon the pun, looking to have content to fill a time slot. TV production as cheap as possible, basically 2 sets and 8 actors in this whole thing.
All unknowns, so yeah. Super cheap.
Billy Campbell was?
Okay, I guess not.
Half known.
Almost all unknown.
Yeah.
There's another guy too, his partner.
Oh yeah, that guy's
been in a couple things.
Bit parts. And then the woman, actually, I looked her up because she looked familiar. She's off of, I think, NCIS now or something.
Nice.
Oh, okay, well.
So they all didn't die as part of the cold equations. But again,
sorta unknowns.
I would call this sci-fi's successful attempt at making a Hallmark movie.
Yeah,
although the sound, the audio, the music is one of the big things, especially at the end, that makes me feel that way, and the pad and relatively pad ending.
But also this is also an attempt by them to take a classic, and I'll put quotation marks on that, classic science fiction story and adapt it. This is from a short story by one Tom Godwin. which I found with a tip from my girlfriend, which I read very quickly in preparation for this. I didn't really read it in super detail, so I might miss something. I might be a little too cruel to Tom Godwin in retrospect, but he's probably dead, so who cares? This is the story was from 1954. And it's also been made into, according to IMDb, it was also made into a newer Twilight Zone episode, not the original series, but like the 80s one, if I remember right. So there have been other adaptions of it. And on the surface, it's kind of an interesting ethics question. The thing I wrote down at the time was, it's like an ethics class with bad CGI. So we have a basic ethical conundrum that we're faced with. And it's interesting because the conundrum in the original story is, well, we can censor this if we want to. It's total bull. The entire basic premise is very bad. The idea is that everything is engineered in space with such tight weight allotment margins that when Manic Pixie Dream Girl stows away on the ship, at that point, her addition of 100-some pounds dooms the mission, and it pretty much has to be spaced as a result. That, as many people have observed, sci-fi author Cory Doctorow apparently has picked this up. According to Wikipedia, there's also an engineer who's written about this moderately extensively, all pretty much saying this is just bad design. This is not how engineering works. This is not how space travel works. This is going to kill a lot of people and waste a lot of resources, and you're just being dumb with this kind of system.
And that's why maybe I would argue it would play better on Hallmark, because you can just ignore reality on Hallmark shows.
See, the thing is, though, if you put it on Hallmark, then you have to have snow at the end.
Right.
And you can't have snow in space.
Really?
I don't know. Can you?
In Hallmark, you could.
Look, it's snowing. It's a Christmas miracle.
Maybe the insulation gets shredded and it snows inside.
So, this story was kind of all over the place. Well, the acting was all over the place.
Yes. Sometimes it was actually decent.
Yeah.
And in other cases, it was, again, melodramatic.
Yeah. And then the writing was, she's going to die, but then she is nice to him, but then he's nice to her, but then he yells at her, and then she's nice to him, and he's nice to her, but then she tries to kill him, and he's nice to her, and then they fall in love because reasons?
Because reasons.
Then how much time actually passes while they're in the spacecraft?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if we get an accurate picture of that. I think there is something of a clock going on. But I don't remember what the time frame was. I mean,
here's part of that though. Like, this is another film like Starcrash that relies way too heavily on dialogue to drive the narrative.
Yes. Right? Well, I mean, they kind of have to with this.
No, they didn't. You could have done this film completely differently.
How?
Followed the characters. Don't scrap the whole book-ending framework of the interrogation of the court-martial, because again, that's just exposition for exposition's sake, I would argue. It probably would have been more dramatic, just played out solely at the end instead of using that as the narrative device. Don't have them get on the spaceship until the midway point of the film. Establish who these characters are, the world that they live in, more visuals of the minor, having a clearer picture, and again, it would have cost more money, a clearer picture of who these people are and the world that they live in. Because all that's used to establish that is the main character and his friend walking through the slum part of the ship or whatever it was on the planet.
The colonists, the lower class. Yeah.
And then her, the stowaway, just basically telling about herself.
Yeah.
Versus... And then that whole thing with her brother, I think you could have shown a lot more of that than just it was all narrative. It was all dialogue driven.
I saw that as a bottle episode So a bottle episode in a TV show is they have X amount of money for a season, and they use all their money on the guest star and the CGI and whatever. So then the next episode after that, or somewhere in there, is an episode where it just takes place in one room, and they're just they do have the story go along, but it's the same sets, same actors. They don't have to do any sort of special effects, and that's kind of what this was. Just everything was kind of played out through dialogue and that.
It was definitely made to be cheap. It was made cheaply.
Oh no,
Purpose.
we've been locked in the basement. Oh no, we've been locked in the meat freezer, and so forth.
Exactly, yes. The classic one is Community, which is a great show if you guys haven't seen it. It is a great show. I watched that before I came working here, and I thought it was... No, it's not. But the bottle episode is somebody... one of the girls in the group loses her pen. And so she demands everybody to stop and not leave, and they're just going to stay in their study room to find this pen. And they're attacking one another verbally, and it's just...
Like 12 Angry Men?
Kind of, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. I bet they are.
So 12 Angry Men is another example of that. Yeah. Where it's a little bit on the outside of the jury room, but then you go into the jury room, and that's good.
Yeah, but you had 12 really good actors.
Well, there's your problem.
Versus 2.
Billy Campbell is awesome.
Billy Campbell's like 5 minutes of this movie.
No, he's the whole thing. He's the pilot guy.
Oh, he's the pilot guy? I thought he was the African-American interrogation guy. Oh, sorry.
I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah, sorry.
That guy looked familiar, though.
Yeah, he's been on stuff as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Billy Campbell's cool.
So... what occurred to me while I was watching this, and again, similar to this whole battle episode, Gambit, is the idea that this would actually make a good play. Again, if you got some really solid actors, you tightened it a lot. As in, if we really got this down to like a one actor, it would or maybe even a 2 actor in the old Tom Stoppard version, you could really get something interesting out of this. Even with the framing device, you got a scene change. But other than that,
that'd be good. Yeah,
I mean, it's it would work as a play because it's pretty intense, or can be intense if it's done right. It's life or death, and it's an artificial kind of situation. Again, it would actually, depending on the time frame, would actually line up with Aristotle's rules of drama, the old 24 hours, one location, and I can't remember the other ones right now.
So, WTF moments. I think we're ready to talk about those.
All right.
Because there's going to be a lot of them, and I think we just...
Wait, which one?
That's why we're going to have to lay the groundwork here. Does it matter? Can we just go? Because they're going to be...
I think we can probably just go. My big WTF for cold equations was the font in the credit sequence.
The opening title sequence.
Hey, this is a playful teen sex comedy, and no, it's not. So, and it's just, it's a really weird choice.
Yeah.
And then, of course, right after that, really bad CGI. And then, okay, now I guess I know what we're in for.
Especially for 96.
Yeah.
It should have been better than it was.
But again, it is Sci-Fi Channel.
Right.
Yeah, so it's Sci-Fi Channel. This is 3 years after Jurassic Park was released.
Okay.
So we have the ability to do the CGI, but that's Jurassic Park, and that's a multi-million-dollar
and I don't even know what the budget for this thing would... If it was
$10 on a candy? I don't know.
Oh, it's probably at least $1 million. No. It's probably low six figures. I mean, this cold equation falls into, and this will be interesting because we'll get into talking about Deathstalker later. The Jim Wynorski model of being able to make movies really, really cheaply. I bet it's 5 figures, depending on what the actors cost, because that set was nothing. Of the spaceship, and they explain that away fairly easy. Oh, the government wants to make things cheaply, so that's why it looks cheap. And I was kind of like,
yeah,
kind of. I don't even know if I have a WTF moment for... My WTF moment was, for Cold Equation, was how pat the ending was. I thought that maybe it would have been like a twist, a little bit more thought-provoking, like, I don't know. It seemed too formulaic.
Well, that, and was there really a resolution? I mean, he got down to the planet. He started the revolution. Spoilers. Started the revolution, and then he's sentenced to the same mine that he told people not to go into. And that's it.
And there's a glimmer that there might be a wider revolt because of it, but that's not really a twist. That's we're gonna make this just a little Star Wars-y at the end. That we're gonna make it sort of like her sacrifice was very important. Whereas now a couple things about the cold equations on this. In the original short story, the villain is physics. The villain is the cold requirements of needing to travel in space, which is dumb, as we've already covered. Again, the 100 pounds as the difference between somebody dying and somebody not, that's just not very smart. So that's it. In the movie, we get the corporation becoming the bad guy. The reason that these stupid weight restrictions are in place is the corporation's remarkably cheap. So I guess that kind of makes sense, and given the wider changes to the story. Again, we get the revolution coming out of that, but I don't know. It changes the meaning of the story. Not quite, I don't know, Starship Troopers changing everything about Heinlein's book kind of changing, but it's still kind of weird. It's a twist that I'm still trying to figure out as to whether it actually improved the thing or not. I think it did. It actually kind of made it a little better. I don't know. Maybe almost worth making.
Well,
but
it helped
then
explain
was still,
though.
Yeah, but it's still kind of like, okay, great revolution, wonderful.
And again, I think that goes to the failure of showing those type of things as part of the entire cinematic experience. Again, I agree with you. Like, this as a play probably makes sense because as a play, I'm going in knowing I'm going to have to listen more than I'm actually going to have to watch.
Right. And as a melodrama specifically, it also allows us to suspend disbelief to a certain extent in a way that a science fiction story specifically kind of makes us not.
Because if the science doesn't work...
Right, then what's your point?
So, again, I think my biggest WTF moment then was when they revealed that they were going to not make it because 100 pounds. It just made no... I couldn't make logical sense of that in my head, so it kind of made me disvalue everything.
Right.
My moment was, in Cold Equations, was when she tried to murder him by choking him out with her leg pant string, and then like 2 seconds later they're making out. Like it's just that was one example of the entire thing where it jumped all over the place.
Yeah.
Where if they would have done a better job with either the editing or the writing to actually make it kind of slowly come up and go down, I think that would be a little bit better.
So I will read verbatim from my notes at this point. Sorry, manic pixie dream girl, but you get flushed after the garroting attempt.
Wow.
Yeah, it seemed like that happened way too... Like, she was like...
It was all over the place.
And I don't know if that was a failure of the script as it was written, or the failure of the delivery, or just a failure.
It might be a failure of the fact that they don't really let them, I don't know, be quiet for a little bit. Again, it's all dialogue driven again, whereas with a play, occasionally you can have that moment of silence and then have the actors responding to each other during that time, and you can kind of take your time on that sort of thing, whereas sci-fi, we gotta hurry along. Gotta get to the next bad CGI shot, after all.
Which is interesting because the Cold Equations is all talking. Galaxina is a lot of shots of nothing, right? Like a hallway, a ship, credits, a ship, credits, a ship.
A person on a rowing machine.
Smoking on a rowing machine on the bridge.
Well, what else would you do on the bridge of a starship? No, yeah, so
I'll tell you
that's
something,
a great
though.
point.
Picard would never allow that.
Because
I must agree.
The WTF moment for me with Galaxina is technical base. Technical base. They break the 180 degree. They don't even acknowledge that the 180 degree rule exists. Are you familiar with what that is?
No.
The 180 degree rule is like in a scene, you have a line going down the middle of it, and you keep the camera on one side of it. So in a dialogue, my camera's here looking at you. You're actually facing this way. It's over here now on you. So it looks like things are organized, and it helps the viewer pay a spatial arrangement of the things that are happening, especially in these low-budget films where you cut from kind of close-up to close-up to close-up, and you can't afford a wide shot to give you that arrangement. Following the 180-degree rule is even more important. This film has a starship going right to left, and then the person who's driving the ship looking in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So, and it'll have shots of the ship again going right to left, but then we get that panning left to right shot of the engine room or whatever it is that just seems to be there for no reason. And this film does it consistently, breaks the 180-degree rule. For me, someone trying to watch a film that can ignore a lot of things with the technical background that I have in film, just could not make sense of it.
What I've learned when spelling, make sure you do the same type of bad spelling. Like if you don't know how to spell a word, misspell it the same way. So at least you're consistent.
Yes.
So I think that's what they did.
Potentially there might have been some grand reason for doing that.
Yeah.
But again, especially in a science fiction, science fantasy type film, suspending disbelief is almost it's a requirement, obviously, right?
Yes.
But any little thing, we'll believe a lot of things, but it's the weird little things that'll pull us out of it. As an example, I think I've told both of these before. In Iron Man 2, I think it is, which has people flying around in suits and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. My wife breaks out of that film when Scarlett Johansson character changes into her Black Widow outfit and has a completely different hairdo. Like 2 seconds later.
Oh, yeah.
Like she's just like, what? What's going on? Can believe, aliens punching each other in the face and stuff like that. But a quick hair change is not acceptable.
Well, that's going to take me out of the movie now, too. Even though it wasn't the best movie ever. Like,
yeah, it's
that and Thor 2 or just whatever. But
let's not get into the Marvel stuff. We'll say that.
Yes.
But Galaxina, can you guys explain to me, because I fell asleep, what the freak is this movie even doing about? There's a Vulcan-ish black winged character.
He's a bat.
He's a bat?
I
don't know. I think he's there to add a certain level of space jiviness to the situation.
So is
he does address someone as space honkey at one point.
Oh, that's right. That's
Really?
right. Yeah. Yeah. So, wait, what was the question?
I think the question is just WTF,
Everything.
exclamation point, question mark. Like,
there's the weird rock guy who's apparently a prisoner on their ship.
Yeah, but he eats rocks.
Yeah.
He doesn't eat metal,
he's
though.
a cannibal?
And he also delivers
guess.
the immortal line, and you might need to censor this one too. That's how we get our rocks off.
Oh. Wait, which part of that do I censor?
I don't know. Perhaps the whole idea. I don't know.
I feel like I don't know Cornelius Butt. Okay, and he's doing a Starlog type thing at a part of this. And again, I think it's just like they're taking all the things that they thought were cool from other. Oh, the biggest WTF moment in the whole freaking film at the beginning when the guys. Oh, that's the wrong film. That's Starcrash. Never mind. I'm mixing my films now because they're all running together.
By the way, gentle listener, this is going to be a recurring issue as we accumulate more and more movies. We are going to ram them together because some of them just...
that would be a great experiment. Can we take all of these films at the end and cut them up to make a 90-minute film out of the pieces of them?
I keep saying we should enter all these into an AI and create a script just from what the AI learns from these films. It's going to be bad, but...
Well, it can't be worse.
It's true. It can be more entertaining.
It can't be worse.
So the ship's protocols for Galaxina are they all have androids, which apparently the androids have a gender and are sexy, and you're not allowed to touch them. So that's just mean.
Yeah, who's that?
All right, so quote from Cold Equations in response to that. We call it a fundamental design constraint.
yes, nice. Beautiful.
So you have Galaxina, who's this sexy android that walks around and feeds the crew, and she changes outfits to feed the crew, which is weird. And then she ends up falling in love with the first mate, the sergeant guy.
Mr. Rowing Machine.
And while they're in cryostasis for 27 years, she overrides her programming and learns how to talk, because she couldn't talk before, sorry. And
spoiler, everyone.
Yeah. And from that, then, she also turned off the shocking mechanism so then they can fall in love and be together.
But apparently she's also missing certain parts, which we won't dignify with the discussion.
Is she like a Barbie doll?
Wait, what? I don't remember this.
There is a... All right, so absolute
Spoiler
fairness.
alert, decency alert.
No, absolute fairness. I did not remember this in the movie. I think I, briefly saw, it was and then, I don't know, got distracted by something else sucking. But... According to Wikipedia, apparently she is missing components that they then have to order, apparently, so they can consummate their love later on.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, it makes sense. Why would you build a robot like that with those parts when they're not allowed to touch? Yeah.
This film, Galaxina, this is a WTF moment I'm having right now, won the Audience Award at the 1983 Brussels International Film Festival of Fantasy Film. Wikipedia.
Number one, fantasy film in 1983 was really bad. So the fact that this was legitimately, that it actually had 2 moments where I actually laughed out loud. Just 2, but that's probably enough to win that award in 1983 in Brussels. So, yay. But you will note that it won no other award.
Yes, not even... Yes.
And why are they showing it in 1983? This is from 80. I don't know. Maybe it was part of a bigger film festival or something.
Yeah, wild. So there's bikers in this? I don't remember.
Yeah. The bikers that worship the motorcycle because it's from an ancient... time, and then they just steal it, and the heroes steal it and leave.
And the whole thing is shot in a blindingly dull orange. Is that an orange filter? Or would an orange filter take out the orange?
That was somebody probably not white balancing the camera.
No, it's on purpose.
It's on
They're
purpose,
doing it on purpose.
It's an alien atmosphere, so they have to be different. That's the place with the human restaurants, where it's like, it's a cookbook. It's to serve man, you know?
Yeah, I think I missed that one. That's our Twilight Zone, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so there's on the menu there's
and a Simpsons reference by extension.
There's on the menu there's Bloody Mary, and then there's poached legs on toast, and then there's fruit of the womb and all this other stuff. It's bad, like just human. Like the everybody that goes in there eats human. So
wild.
Yeah. And then they have Mr. Spot.
Mr. Spot.
Instead of Mr. Spock. And the ears are drooping down and they're pointy.
He's the bartender, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's all coming back to me. We should stop now. Yeah, so I was seriously upset when I saw this weekend that it was no longer available on Amazon Prime. I physically had
But I'm certain, gentle listener, that you can track it down somewhere online. I don't know, maybe I don't know. It's got to be out there somewhere.
Yes. So we've got about 5 minutes left before you have to go to class.
Yeah.
What are the truths that we can take from today? Bad films are going to happen when people try to steal from good films or don't understand good films.
Right. There's also we're arguably dealing with sort of a failed seriousness with the cold equations too, that they actually are within heavy limitations trying to create some kind of, art here. They're trying to get at some kind of deeper human message and not exactly succeeding either.
I mean, this is a legitimate question, though. Is that because, in the 1950s, the audience wouldn't have had enough information to logically suspend disbelief like we do, or have seen too many of those things like now that they would have had to do some type of twist or reimagining outside of just adding the bookends and stuff to make that like more impactful, right? Because it didn't have any impact. We kind of knew what was going to happen at the end for the most part.
And all that stuff was new because, well, I mean, you said it was in the 80s though, right? That was shot?
It was, well...
Not this, but the Twilight Zone episode.
Oh, the Twilight Zone, yeah, it's from the 80s reboot, so...
But, I mean, I've been trying to imagine all of these movies so far that we've been watching. If they were shot in the 60s or the 50s, would they be as bad, or would they actually be better because of the type of quote-unquote care that they would have back then, even though they weren't any better, really?
I think I'm going to have to go back to, use the analogy, I guess, of original Nintendo games. All using the same technology, yet some hold up phenomenally well, but the vast majority are just complete and utter garbage. So this idea of using some of the motifs and tropes from successful films, like even Westerns, right? Because that's obviously where Star Wars came from. There's obviously pieces of Galaxina that reference back to Westerns.
The Batmobile's in it too. I forgot.
Really?
Yes.
Thanks, IMDb. I never would have spotted
the real Batmobile.
Yeah, the 60s Batman Batmobile, the Adam West one. It's in the Western town.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's just in the background chilling.
It's just sitting there, and you don't even see the full thing. It's like you see like the tail end of it.
I think you see like the dome part too, where Batman and Robin.
It would definitely be enough if you are really good at detail, which I'm not, or if you got a tip off. Oh, the Batmobile's in this. When you see that, okay, yeah, it's the Batmobile.
It was awesome. Sorry to derail you.
No, that's fine, because I was just going to make up some bull.
Anything that gives more love to 1966 Batman.
I would love to see a new Batman movie based on what the Adam West version of Batman, where Jeff Goldblum plays Bruce Wayne. That would be amazing.
Do you know that they came out with two animated film movies
with Adam West and Burt Ward?
Yeah,
reprising their role.
The Two-Face one is William Shatner's Two-Face.
Oh,
yeah, that's on Amazon Prime, right?
Yeah, it's actually quite good. Like, it gets kind of dark too, which is weird.
Well, we'll save that for the Batman podcast.
Yay! So, one of the things, I don't know if this is true, but I've noticed there's at least one good actor in each of these movies, right? We had Plummer and we had Hasselhoff, so that's two. But I thought Billy Campbell was pretty good for what he had available.
I'll give you that.
Because you're only as good of an actor as the person that you're playing off of, and I don't think she was
or your director,
or even what you're given written wise.
Yeah, material. Yeah.
And then for Galaxina, could it be the Sergeant was the best? I forgot Thor, Sergeant Thor. Yeah.
I would argue that the moment that kind of bursts out of Galaxina is Dorothy Stratton, and not just because she's hot. But she is. But the issue with Stratton is I always get the feeling that she could have done something a lot better, and I think a lot of other people kind of got that feeling off of her too. As a comparison point, I give you Kathy Ireland, who is in a dreadful movie called Alien from L.A., and she is terrible in it. She's Kathy Ireland. She's a supermodel. She's very attractive throughout it, the peak of her attractiveness. And she's miserable. It's so awful. And she cannot act her way out of a paper bag. Everything else around her is terrible, too. And in this case, at least she didn't Kathy Ireland it up. I mean, Stratton is competent here.
I really wish I could watch this movie again, but I'm not going to give YouTube $4 to watch it because that's what it is, like $3.99.
Yeah.
I can't do that to myself.
That's to rent it too, right?
Yeah,
that's too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
No.
So, what we have looking forward then, next week's podcast, The Forbidden World, will be episode 4. Hopefully that's still available because I haven't watched it yet.
It is. I watched it.
Okay. So I'm excited because I'm going to go into it with virgin eyes and ears.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah.
But you said you've already.
Yeah,
no, is this
I
your
am
first
already
watching?
experienced of Forbidden World. I did watch it earlier this week, so
Awesome. So, anything else?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm excited about the stuff that's coming up.
Because we've got Forbidden World, New Barbarians, Devil Girls from Mars, Space Raiders, Lost Empire, Galaxy Lords. Episode 10 will be Deathstalker, all of them.
Oh, God.
And then we will end this season, we'll call it a season, with the recently found by us, Starcrash 2.
Are we going to talk about Italian Spider-Man? No, that's not even in the same realm. Never mind.
Do you know what Italian Spider-Man is?
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
Oh,
Clink
so-
sent me
okay.
It's
the
awesome
trailer.
and horrible.
It's pretty awesome.
I think season 2 of Because You Watch Starcrash should be about all the things that we talked about or discovered in.
Yeah.
Because then it still warrants Because We Watch Starcrash.
We can always bonus episode it at the end.
Yeah.
We're
For all those
getting ready for-
Patreon backers.
Yes, follow us on social media.
Oh,
If we have them
please.
eventually, yes. If this makes it past the
Give
censors.
us money.
All right. Bye, folks.
Bye.
Say bye,
Bye.
folks.
Bye, folks.